I got my reference image here on the TV with grid lines, so I could draw the grid lines on the canvas and then, orient every detail where it goes on the grid. Can't see much of the grid anymore because I added paint, but I did have lines everywhere, and I invented this where I can trace on light colors with a pencil, and I can trace on dark with a white pencil. So I started with a grid, and then I blocked out all the basic objects, and I just look back and forth a lot to see where everything goes. The tricky thing about this painting is I want it to be very vibrant, a lot of colors, bright colors, but the reference image is not vibrant. It's just a lot of tan and dark greens and reds. I want the painting to look like some of these. I took some inspiration images from, I think, YouTube, especially on the left there. It's got bright red, bright green, dark blue in a human face, which this one too especially, just these like surprising colors. I want to do something like that, but so I have to like find colors that are not really there. And well, one of the ways I'm doing that is with my reference image, I edited it a lot in a few different ways. This is one of them. Can I zoom in? I put this through a lot of, different edit passes in Blender to just make it, wherever there's relatively a lot of red, we make that very red, and where there's relatively a lot of cyan, we make it very cyan. It's more complicated than that even, because it's mostly red in this image and not a lot of cyan at all, but somehow I balanced it out to where it's kind of 50-50 here of each. And so that helped me see this nice, like in the upper right or upper left, we have kind of a red diagonal zone, and then the lower right we have a cyan diagonal zone. So I can do that with the background, and that's cool. And then the subject, her face, it's helping to see, we have red and cyan, and then we also have light and dark. So it's kind of like 4 channels of information, or I guess two like contrasts of information that we can look at. So I'm seeing like on the right side, it's darker and it's mostly red dark, but then we also see a little bit of cyan dark as it gets her neck right beyond her face. Anyway, that's helpful to me. I'm not following it exactly, obviously, but it's helpful to see those like 2 different axes that I can choose from. And sort of what I'm doing is like a light half of her face with its own light and dark channels, and then the dark half has its own light and dark channels. I don't really like how I used the black here, that well, really it's dark brown for the darker part. I think I'm gonna sub that out. But basically, if I could have 2 main colors for the light side and 2 different main colors for the dark side, I think that would help me use a lot of vibrant colors and still give like a good shading and a good like coherent shape to the face. I just made another version of the reference image, and this is gonna help me a lot. So you can see I like divided the light and dark on hard borders. You can see each like gradation as it gets darker. I'm picking different colors for different levels of brightness, and I'll want to blend it a little and have a gradient, but to start I just want to paint in these zones, the right colors and the right mixes. And if I just did that, it would look very good. Okay, and also there's just more red in some areas and more yellow in others, so I emphasize those differences. I'm gonna reflect that in the painting somehow. I don't really know yet. I have a lot of colors to work with, so I could play around with bringing out those reds a little bit as well. So to do the text here, I taped this wax paper onto the painting on the edges, and you can see it's at an angle. It's aligned with the booth actually she's sitting on, which is at a downward angle. So the text is at an angle, so I taped this wax paper on to keep those lines as a reference so I could trace in between them. And then I just kind of eyeballed it, just looking back and forth a lot to trace out the letters, and did some measuring and some math to try to make sure all the spaces between each word is identical. And then I just filled them in.